Welcome to Tales of First Ladies. I'm Eleanor Burns. Well, today I'm going to show you how to make the last piece block in the First Ladies quilt. It's called Mrs. Roosevelt's Favorite, after one of the most recognized women in America. Well, I made this quilt called Christmas at the White House. Well, Eleanor Roosevelt's block is in the center. Now, these 4 blocks set on point are an alternate arrangement to the 4 eagles. The second set of blocks is the Lincoln blocks. Amy Potter quilted holly, berries, and a bow in each green triangle, and then she repeated that motif in the bright red triangle surrounding the center square. Now, each of the blocks have old-fashioned looking Christmas fabric in them. And one of my favorite blocks is Mrs. Cleveland's Choice with this large-scale print in the center. And then I put a flying geese border on 4 sides of the quilt to turn it into a square. Well, Amy quilted Christmas trees in the background fabric. Well, I selected this Christmas quilt for Eleanor because I think she celebrated with her family as I do. I read that even when her 5 children were adults, she put oranges in their Christmas stockings, as I do. Well, Eleanor was full of amazing accomplishments. In 1903, she married her distant cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and from that moment, her schedule was busy with obligations. She had a genuine love of people, and she relied on it to become an accomplished hostess. But, there were tales about Eleanor's dinners for the club with friends from Washington. The menu was always the very same thing: scrambled eggs and salad. The only thing exciting at White House dinners was lively conversation. Years later, Eleanor served hot dogs to the visiting King and Queen of England. But in all honesty, it was a picnic. Well, we have more lively conversation to follow as we make Eleanor Roosevelt's favorite. Join me. We have already finished these 7 blocks. We have already done Lady of the White House, Martha Washington wreath. We've done Dolly Madison's star and Harrison Rose. We've already done Lincoln block, Double T for Lucy Hayes, and the last one we just did is Mrs. Cleveland's Choice. Now we're on to Eleanor Roosevelt, that last block. You know, many people think that I was named after Eleanor Roosevelt, especially since I was born in 1945. Not true. I was named after my father's friend, Eleanor, who taught him how to speak English when he came from Germany at 8 years old. Isn't that great? I love my name. Well, I've got everything laid out. The block is so easy to do. We're going to start right here in the center, and then it's just spokes, 4 spokes that go out from the center, and they're from strips. All right. Now the centerpiece is 3 3/8 inches square. This is 3 3/8 by the length, and this one is 4 7/8. So it's easy. Just take this dark one, flip it right sides together to the light, get that edge all lined up. Now you're going to sew with a scant 1/4 inch seam. Usually I sew at 3.5, which is center needle position on my 1/4 inch foot, but I moved it a thread to the right. That's all it is. 1 thread for this little scant 1/4. Needle down and get it going. Let me get that all lined up. Perfect. Well, it's hard to believe, but Eleanor Roosevelt spent 10 Christmases at the White House. She liked it so much that she wrote a book called Eleanor Roosevelt Christmas. And her typical day on the Christmas Eve is just what you would expect from Eleanor Roosevelt. Okay, now I'm going to press my seams to the dark because she started off in the morning and went to the Volunteers of America and thanked them for their volunteering. And they sang Christmas carols. Okay, set that seam and then just open it and press right into the dark. And then in the afternoon, she went to the slums, and she actually called those alleys. I think that sounds better. She handed out gifts, gave food baskets. They loved it. Well, now this piece is cut into 3 3/8-inch strips. And I wanted to make sure I did it correctly, so I put my glow line tape right along 3 3/8 on the underside. Now, I always like to just square it off in the end. It looks pretty straight, but you never know. So just take that very end, just sliver trim about 1/8 of an inch just to straighten it. Now put your glow line tape right along that very edge and cut 4 of them. Well, in the afternoon, the president and his wife gave a Christmas party for their staff. Well, their staff had around 440, and the Roosevelt stood and shook everyone's hand and thanked them. Isn't that wonderful? Such a great beginning to Christmas. All right, that's extra. You can get rid of that. And then look how easy it is to finish. We're just going to do like an X. I'm going to turn it like this and put the light right next to the center. And that's all we have to do. Now I have to make some flying geese. We are going to fly through these geese because we've already done it. So just as a review, you start out with one large square. This time, this one is 7.5 inches. And you take a smaller square. This is only 5 inches. You place it right sides together and you eyeball it. You try to get it right in the very center. Sometimes people measure it, but you don't have to do that. Because if you just take your ruler and you place it on there on the diagonal, see if it goes through all 4 corners. Then you know you've got it centered. So then just draw a diagonal line. Okay, on the move. Draw a diagonal line and just sew a 1/4 inch away from one side of the diagonal line. Turn it around and just sew right down the other side. So we've got the lines drawn. Okay, we're moving. So now just take this and cut it in half. Just right down through the middle. Oh, I covered my cutter. Okay, just cut it right in half like that. And you've got 2 geese. All right, drop it with the dark on the top. Set the seam. Press toward the dark. And actually what you press toward is the largest triangle. It doesn't matter if it's dark or light, but it has to be the largest triangle. Okay, now these are 2 very strange looking pieces. So you put them back, right sides together, opposite colors touching. Okay, don't even think about matching these seams right here. What you match are the outside edges. The outside edges, and I just call these the goose tails. They look like that to me, and it helps me remember. So then you draw another diagonal line. And get ready. And you sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides. So that's your lesson. I know you've heard it before. And so we're up to the point now where you just cut on that diagonal. Just open it up and check it. And you go, okay, this is perfect. Look at that. Because here we have a flying geese patch. On the other side, a flying geese patch. So out of those 2 squares, you actually get 4 geese, and they're going to be perfect. Now, so that we can press the seams away from the geese, I just take those tails, fold them in half, and take your scissors and just clip right to the stitching. Don't go through the stitching. And we're down to the last step. Just take your iron. I like to hold up one side of it. Take your iron, put it right into the part that we're going to save, which is this white goose right here. And then once that's done, flip it around and go into the second goose. So that when you check on the wrong side, these seams actually go in opposite directions. The whole block lays flat. And now comes the squaring up. We're just going to give this a spin. We are squaring these geese to 2 by 4. 2 by 4 finished geese. So remember, if you allow for your seam allowance, they're really 2.5 by 4.5 before stitching. So take the green lines, line it up on the geese, get it slid clear up in there. Perfect. It's looking good. And just hold it down. I start by cutting backwards and going across. And separate this out so you don't accidentally trim it. And you can just swing your whole little turnable around. Hold it down again. And go up and across. Oops, I slipped just a little. Oops. Be very careful. And then one more cut. And that's your perfect geese. There's a lot of honking to go on over this one. Look at that. There's your 1/4 inch. Here's your points right in here. This one you're going to square up the same way. But let's get going. Oh, when did you know my iron decided to make a lot of noise just when I'm about to tell you the most important part. These are 3-inch squares. We're going to just cut those on one diagonal. There's one square for each one of the geese. There's 4 right here. And what we want to do is just turn this, take the geese, and put one triangle on one side and one triangle on the other. Perfect. That looks good. And now I just want to sew those 2 triangles to the ends of the geese. We're doing good. See, I told you this Eleanor Roosevelt was a pretty easy block. Now, actually, you're going to make 4 of these, so you will be doing some assembly line sewing. Get your needle down, and then just slip right across there. You know, another block, another name for this block is dumbbell, which makes me feel really sad because actually Eleanor's grandmother and mother called her Granny just because they thought she was very unattractive and that she would never go anywhere. She had kind of funny looking teeth, little funny voice. And so to think that maybe they would call her dumbbell hurts. But she went to finishing school and came out just a beautiful, confident, intelligent woman. All right, so now we're just going to press these seams open. We've got the triangles on the top, and take your ruler, cut off your tips. Oh my gosh, sometimes we cut off our tips, sometimes we let them hang up, but these have got to go. Well, this is a 5.5-inch square. We're going to just take it and cut it into 4ths on both diagonals. And this is the last step of this little quarter part. So let's just take one of these, and this is going to go right on the end. Now, you really want to line up the seam on this with the center. So I recommend just taking this triangle, folding it in half, doing a little creasing so that when you position it, it's just centered right on that seam. Okay, flip it right sides together. And when you're doing these, you always have to make sure that you have equal tips hanging out on both sides. I have found that information is so valuable. Okay, let me just put this down. Once you learn these techniques, you can just convert them to any other quilt block that you would like to do. And this is the last step for the quarter. Let me just show you, and I'll press it out. There we go. And press it out. Wow, that looks really good. I'm going to finish all 4, and then I'll show you how to lay out the block. We are so close. We are going to boogie through this. I already have my triangles on all 4 pieces. Now, you have to do a little squaring up, a little trimming on this. And I found the 6.5-inch triangle square up ruler works great. Take the diagonal line on the ruler and just line it right down through the flying geese. And then put the 1/4-inch lines right here on the seams, right here at the tips. Looking good. And I am talking shaving little pieces off. No big chunks come off of this piece. Ready. Now, we've got all four. We've got to get this off the table. Take this piece. It's going to go right in here. I turned my X on point so I can see the whole way that block's going to go together. And you just put in all of those pieces. Beautiful. Love it. Now, there's a little bit of matching you need to do. Right here, I want to match this seam with this point. And so I'm going to take the middle vertical row and just flip it to the left. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to start right up here, take a pin, and put the pin in 1/4 inch in, and line it up like that, and then go right here to this part, which should be 1/4 inch, and put my pin through there, stand up my pin, squeeze it together, and then just turn my pin. So that one's ready. So we can just zoom down there. What is this hanging on here? Got to get rid of that. And then let's go right here, another pin. Let's just take this, go right down in here, and match down here. Now what happens is you get so good at this, you just finger match. I usually end up doing a lot of finger matching, but what's important is that you have to know what you're supposed to line up so it all works out. Perfect. Zooming right down along there. So let's get going. Just pick up that first one. And it's interesting because for a while you're sewing on nothing. That's a lot of fun, but that's the way the patch goes. So let me get this lined up right here. Still use that scant 1/4 inch seam and hold that seam flat and just zip right down. And then when I get right to this pin, I just about sew over it a little bit more. And then with my stiletto, just pull that pin out. Oops, didn't work so well. Okay, let's just keep on going right down here. And you pick up the second part, match this square up. Remember that was 3 3/8. Oh my gosh, all these measurements. And then I have just one more. I'm going to watch that pin right there. You know, Eleanor was never very big on bodyguards because they got in the way. She just didn't like them. Well, the Secret Service insisted that she knew how to handle a pistol. And after seeing her on the firing range, J. Edgar Hoover told the president she couldn't hit the side of a barn door, and she shouldn't be walking around with a pistol. Well, that sounds really good. Well, Earl Miller, do you remember her? He was a former New York State Trooper. He took time to coach the First Lady. Okay, let's get this back up here. Open this up like this. Ooh, pretty good. Look at that. Could be maybe just a little bit deeper. This one matches better. I think you should go in close on this one because it looks really good. Maybe I need to go a little deeper right there. So now we're just going to have these same seams. We're going to flip this right sides together. 1, 2, 3. Get them all lined up. Where are my pins? I threw them all around. I guess I'm in for finger pinning. My pins are all on the floor. So let's just see how I do. Line this up. Hold it down. If the one with the finger matching is better, then you can decide how you want to do it. Well, apparently, Eleanor never took this gun thing very seriously because they found the gun. It ended up in the glove compartment of her car, unloaded. I think that's what I think I would probably do. Well, Eleanor did many great things. She was really involved. And her role with the advisor didn't really end with the death of her husband in April of 1945 because the incoming president, President Harry Truman, appointed her American delegate to the new United Nations. That's really cool. One more. Okay, let's get this one lined up. And finger pin that. Hold it down there. Hold it. Now see, there's a stitching mark. So if you stitch right across that, it'll really look great. But you know what? If you open it up and you look at it and it's not great, don't worry. All you have to do is just hang it high, keep it moving. So we'll never know. Okay, let's just take a look. So we've done all the vertical rows. We did 2 vertical rows. Pretty good. They're pretty good. I'm impressed. The ones that I finger pinned are just as good. So now let's turn this, flip this the opposite way, and right here at the seam, you're going to press the seams away from the center square and away from the geese. And just get those locked together. You've got another point to match right up here. I'm going to line that up and get that going. So we only have 2 more pieces to do, 2 more seams to do. I love to use my stiletto because at these points, if I'm not just going to hit it right on, I literally take and stretch a piece with my stiletto so that it'll match up. Okay, right here, I'm going to stop, push this seam up, and go across that. I'm all fingers. Okay, right here. Line it up, lock it together, and just keep on going. I only have 1 more seam, but I think I better just stop right here and show you how to square up that block. Great. So check out this stitching because that's how it's supposed to look when you're trying to make that match point. It goes right through there. Look at it from the right side. Ooh, looking good. 1 more and I'm done. But I've got to show you how to square this up to 12.5 inches. I have my turnable mat. It is a little bit bigger than 12.5 inches. Lay your block on there square. This is a 12.5 inch square up ruler. Line up the diagonal line right down through the middle. And then I'm checking because your line should go through. If this is 12.5, this should go through at center at 6 1/4. It's looking good. Make sure it's on every corner. Perfect. So just hold down your mat because at this time you don't want anything slipping. Those little corners go off. Turn it around to the next 2 sides and just trim. Perfect. And that is the block. We've just got these little corners to get rid of, and it looks really good. So you're going to make 2 of these for your First Lady quilt. Beautiful. Ruth Finley authored America's second quilt book, Old Patchwork Quilts and the Women Who Made Them. She wrote it in 1929, and this is the first edition. In 1934, she said, "Now that quilt making has been revived, it is in this spirit that I created a new pattern and named it the Roosevelt Rose after our present president." Well, this quilt is one of the most unique quilts that I have ever owned, and probably the most expensive. Well, the wreath of flowers are appliqued onto a black sateen background with crosshatch quilting across the wide borders, and the flowers attached to the wreath are simple with 4 petals each. The yo-yos have such large openings that the quilt maker tucked fabric into the holes. The backing is just spectacular in red sateen. You know, the quilt is in excellent shape. The Roosevelt Rose appeared in the 1934 issue of the Good Housekeeping magazine. Now, the fashion editor of the magazine presented it to Eleanor Roosevelt, who promptly gave her endorsement to a national movement looking to revive quilting. Well, the quilt was placed in Eleanor's inventory at the White House, and when she left, that quilt had disappeared, and no one ever knew where it went. You know, actually, my son Orion thinks that I purchased it from a vendor because of the loops on the back for hanging. He thinks they are for hanging it professionally. Well, maybe he's right. Well, Nancy Sandoval was so inspired by the Roosevelt rose that she did a similar pattern for her border around her First Lady quilt. She set the roses on a black background as well. I just love her meandering vine with pink roses and pink and red yo-yos. Well, Nancy said she spent hours creating this gorgeous border. Well, the border ties in with the rose fabric she used in the setting triangles. You know, both quilts are masterpieces. Enjoy making your Mrs. Roosevelt's favorite.